Herschel Walker, the Republican senatorial candidate running to represent the state of Georgia, is under fresh fire for revelations that he merely owns property in Georgia, he doesn't live there. I'm Yasmin Khan with The Breakdown, and this story is very familiar. We've heard it before, most notably perhaps during this last election cycle, when famed New Jersey TV doctor Mehmet Oz made a bid for the Pennsylvania Senate seat. Dr. Oz lost his election, but in his case, the fact that he didn't actually live in Pennsylvania plagued him throughout his entire campaign. It was pretty well known that he didn't live in the state that he was hoping to represent. Now, records show that Herschel Walker, the wildly unqualified Senate candidate who somehow managed to trigger a runoff election against an incumbent, also lives in a different state from the one he's running in.
I was sitting in my home in Texas, and I was seeing what was going on in this country.
But during a campaign rally just hours ago, Walker claimed that he's always been a Georgia resident.
I represent the great people of Georgia. I've lived here my whole life.
Now, this is a story because it's shady. It's deliberately deceitful. There are rules against this sort of thing, but with rules, there are usually loopholes. Loopholes are easily exploited if you have the backing of the entire Republican Party behind you and a voting populace that either doesn't pay attention to stories like this one or doesn't care about them. And who can blame them? In the grand scheme of things, this is hardly a blip on most people's radars. Even for me, when I first saw this story, I looked at it, thought, of course he doesn't live there, and scrolled past it. You scroll past these things because we know the game by now. We know that nothing will likely be done about it, so ultimately, what does it matter? We scroll past it because we know that Georgia voters who are planning to vote for Herschel Walker will still vote for him after learning this tidbit of information. Honestly, if they can vote for a guy like Herschel Walker to be their senator, they're not voting for the candidate. They'll vote for literally anyone with an R by their name. But representation is the crux of our system of government. You can argue that we're not a true democracy or a republic, or that we're an empire or an oligarchy or a plutocracy, whatever. The governmental system that we officially have in place is, at least in principle, a representative one. The reason we have two chambers of Congress is so that people and states are adequately represented in their federal government. A Texan running for a Senate seat in Georgia is an insult to the people of Georgia, and it's an insult to our entire system of government. You know, I'm not even mad at Herschel Walker for this. Walker isn't really the problem. I mean, he's not great, but he's being used as a prop by more sinister characters within the GOP. The electoral system in the United States has become less about the representation of the people and more about the gaming of the system. So, is the system broken? Sure it is. When we saw George W. Bush win the presidency in 2000 without winning the popular vote, the system was broken. When we saw Trump do the same thing in 2016, the system was broken. And to be clear, when I say broken, that's not to suggest that it isn't working the way it was designed to. No one here is denying that Trump won his election legitimately, at least as far as the election process is concerned. He did. You know, some people might deny George W. Bush, but that's a whole other story. Rules state that the electoral count trumps, no pun intended, the popular vote totals. We know that. But this has now happened twice in recent memory. Two presidents who did not have the support of the majority of American voters ascended to the highest office in the country, representing all of us on a world stage. Both of those presidents came from the same party, a party whose platform is not supported by the majority of American voters. Still, they've managed to obtain power, even doing so presumably through legal avenues, effectively reducing the American democratic process to just another example of a minority population ruling over a majority, something that you see in governments around the world, governments that we, for some reason, seem to think that we're better than. So is all of this just a case for ranked choice voting? Is that what this entire video has been building to? I mean, I think so, and I imagine that most of you watching this would probably agree. It would serve to ease the issue where we have people who don't necessarily want to vote for the opposing party, but they would like to vote for someone besides the one candidate that they've been given. The current system of primaries and elections and runoffs that we've got still manages to weed out candidates that might not be perfect on paper, but would still make competent and experienced experienced leaders. It weeds out people who might be experts in their fields, but for one reason or another, they aren't deemed to be electable enough to defeat the opposition. Trump never should have made it as far as he did in 2016, but the GOP couldn't give him up after a certain point because he was getting so many retweets and so much free airtime. He was essentially being rewarded for his sensationalism and extremism. By the time November came along, the whole party had no choice but to fall in line behind him, and GOP voters had no choice but to vote for him. He was by no means the most qualified candidate for the role. And to be fair, we could make the same argument for Joe Biden. Joe Biden was simply deemed to be the most electable of all of the candidates in the field. Now, ranked choice voting would give people the option to vote for the party they want to vote for, while also saying, you know, I like this person, but I'd also be happy with this person. It's less black and white, and while I personally get very uncomfortable with gray areas, I'll admit that a system that governs actual people could use a little gray, because neither people nor societies exist in black or white. And yes, ranked choice as a system is not perfect, but neither is what we've got. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a quote-unquote perfect system, but that said, you can't tell me that a system in which someone like Herschel Walker can be considered a viable senatorial candidate to represent a state in which he does not live is good. We're just used to our electoral process, and as a society, I think it's safe to say that we're pretty averse to change. We expect anything new and untested to be completely perfect and pristine out the gate, and if it's anything less than absolutely perfect, we run back to what we already know, even if that thing is objectively less perfect. Now, over time, as more people become educated on the electoral system, both what it currently is and what it could potentially be, I think, or I hope, that we'll see more states and local governments adopting a ranked choice system. And maybe, just maybe, the Herschel Walkers of tomorrow won't ever make it to DC. They'll just stay home in Texas. All right, that is it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like and subscribe, and be sure to follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you.